There's a certain kind of person who learned early on how to read a room before anyone said a word. You notice the shift in someone's tone, the silence that lingers a little too long, the way tension sits in the air even when no one names it. And without thinking, you adjust. You speak more carefully, or you don't speak at all. You take responsibility for things that weren't really yours to carry. You try to keep things steady even when you don't fully understand what's going on. From the outside, it looks like maturity. People might describe you as calm, composed, easy to deal with, someone who doesn't cause problems, someone who just gets it. But what they don't see is how early that started, and how little of it was ever really a choice. This kind of behavior is often misunderstood because it looks like a strength, and in many ways it is, but it didn't come from nowhere. It followed a pattern. People who grew up feeling older than they were aren't just naturally mature. There's usually something deeper shaping that experience, something that made their mind adapt sooner than it was supposed to. There's more going on here than people realize. From a psychological perspective, the brain is constantly learning how to create stability, especially in environments where things feel uncertain, unpredictable, or emotionally complex. When a child is placed in situations where they have to understand more than what's being explained, where they have to sense what's wrong instead of being told, the brain adjusts. It becomes more alert, more observant, more attuned to subtle changes in behavior, tone, and emotion. This isn't something that's taught directly, it's something that develops quietly over time. The nervous system starts to operate differently. Instead of feeling safe enough to simply exist, it begins scanning, trying to anticipate what might happen next, trying to stay one step ahead of discomfort, conflict, or instability. And when that becomes consistent, it shapes the way a person grows. There's research in developmental psychology that shows how early responsibility and emotional awareness can accelerate certain parts of maturity, but it doesn't always happen evenly. You might become very good at understanding others while still figuring out your own emotions. You might learn how to stay composed without ever feeling fully at ease. You might seem independent, but only because you learned early on that relying on others wasn't always an option. So what people call growing up too fast isn't really about age. It's about adaptation. It's about a system learning how to function in an environment that required more than what was typical. If you think back, it often connects to moments that didn't seem significant at the time. Being the one who stayed quiet to avoid making things worse. Feeling responsible for how other people felt. Noticing things you weren't supposed to notice yet. Learning to handle situations on your own because there wasn't another way. Individually, these moments can feel small. But over time, they shape something much bigger. They create a version of you that's capable, aware, and often a little ahead of where you're expected to be. And that can look like strength. But it also comes with something quieter. Because when you spend so much time managing what's happening around you, there isn't always space to fully experience what's happening within you. So you learn to move forward without always checking in. You handle things, you adapt, you keep going. And eventually, that becomes your default. It's important to say this clearly. There's nothing inherently better about growing up this way, and there's nothing lacking about developing more gradually. Different environments shape people in different ways. Some people are given space to explore, make mistakes, and grow at their own pace. Others learn earlier how to navigate complexity. Neither is more valid. They're just different paths. But when your path involved adapting early, it can create a kind of internal gap. You might feel older than your peers in some ways and younger in others. More aware of certain things and less connected to others. More capable of handling situations, but less sure of what you actually need. And that's where things become more complex. Because the same awareness that helped you navigate your environment can also make it harder to fully relax in it. When your system is used to scanning, it doesn't easily switch off. Even in calm situations, there can be a subtle sense of alertness, a habit of paying attention, of anticipating, of staying prepared. It's not overwhelming. It's just always there in the background. And over time, that can shape how you relate to people. You might find yourself taking on roles without realizing it, being the one who listens, who understands, who holds things together. Not because anyone asked you to, but because it's familiar. Because it's what your system learned to do. There's also a quiet paradox in all of this. The same traits that came from adapting early: awareness, responsibility, emotional insight, are often the things people admire. They trust you, they rely on you, they see you as stable. But those traits can also make it harder to feel fully supported yourself. Because when you're used to being the one who understands, it can feel unfamiliar to be the one who needs understanding. So you keep moving in the same direction. Capable, reliable, composed. Even when part of you is still catching up. And that doesn't mean something is wrong. It means your system did exactly what it needed to do at the time. It learned how to create order, how to read complexity, how to stay steady in situations that required it. That has value. It means you can navigate difficult moments with a level of awareness that not everyone has. It means you can understand people in ways that go beyond what's said. It means you've developed a kind of resilience that came from experience, not just time. But it also means there are parts of you that may not have had the same space to develop at the same pace. And that's okay. Because none of this is about going back and changing what happened. It's about understanding what formed. When you start to see that clearly, something shifts. You stop holding yourself to expectations that were shaped by circumstances, not by choice. You stop assuming that you're supposed to have everything figured out just because you've been capable for a long time. You start to recognize that your experience follows a certain logic. That the way you think, respond, and move through the world didn't come from nowhere. It came from somewhere specific. And when you see that, it becomes easier to relate to yourself with a different kind of clarity. Not as someone who had to grow up too fast, but as someone whose system learned how to adapt early and is still learning what it means to move at your own pace. And if this feels familiar, there are probably other patterns in the way you respond to life that come from the same place. They don't always stand out. But once you begin to notice them, they start to connect in ways that make quiet sense.